Okay, so I'm here with Roy Shelton, who is one of the elite who have passed the Spartan Elite Survival Course in Scotland. Could you introduce yourself, please?
Yeah. So as I said, my name is Roy Shelton. I'm the managing partner of Dropjaw Ventures Group. We provide access to capital and advisory services for startup, scale-up businesses across the UK. Live in Chester, married, 4 sons, a Labrador, 2 cats.
Okay, so one of those sons joined you on the elite course. Is that right?
Yeah, my eldest son Oliver. Yeah, he's 32. Well, 32 in 2 weeks' time. So what we try to do is every year for either Christmas or a birthday do something fun together. So we've done all sorts of things like we've been sailing at Cows Week for my 50th birthday quite a few years ago now. We go shooting together. We're going shooting on the 21st of January, and I just thought doing the Spartan Elite course together would be another milestone and something fun to do together and enjoy. Even though you're not together, you're on your own.
So what drew you to that course in particular? Like, because when you look at it on paper, it's quite extreme. It's at the higher levels of what people think they can be capable of, what the people think they can do.
Um, I think it depends on who you ask. If you ask my wife, she'd probably say a midlife crisis. But for me, it was a case of going off and actually doing something different. There's loads of courses out there that you can go away on, and loads of weekends away you can do and whatever. But I wanted something to test me. I've done Tough Mudder 3 times. I've done 3 peaks. I've done the Ben Nevis Challenge. I wanted something different, but a real step up. I think just to prove to myself that I could do it, I could still do it, and a bit of an escapism, in all honesty. Getting away from that day-to-day grind of work, of technology, of always having to be somewhere for somebody, just taking some time out for me.
So you've chosen to go on the course. The day comes where you're getting picked up at Leeds train station. What's running through your mind at that point?
When I first got on the train at Chester to get over to Leeds, I think it was excitement. It was escapism. It was the opportunity to go and actually reset and do something for me. When I got to Leeds and I got picked up in the van to drive 8 hours, 9 hours overnight.
It's a long drive. Yeah.
To Scotland. Again, continued excitement. It was like having a boys' weekend away somewhere, a week away. But the reality hit once we got to Scotland, and that whole perception of what the week was about changed.
Yeah. So we get to Scotland, which is a secret location, may I add. So we get there, we set up camp, and the 2 days training begins with Ian, who's our chief instructor.
Yes.
What kind of stuff did you go through? How did you feel you were prepared to go out after those 2 days?
Well, I'd already done the level 2 bushcraft course with Spartan earlier in the year with my 10-year-old. So it was remarkable. I'd gone from the youngest doing something with him for 2 days in the woods to doing something quite extreme on the elite course with my eldest lad, which was nice. So it's nice sort of family things to do. So I've got some of the basic understandings of some of the skills that are needed, like starting fire, navigation, collecting water and purifying water, that type of thing. So those basics were there. I think with Scotland, what we learned more is how to manage ourselves in a more extreme environment. I mean, one evening or one night it was sub-zero temperatures.
Yeah.
So knowing how to build your shelter correctly, how to insulate correctly, and what have you, I think was important. And how to start a fire in extreme conditions. So the level 2 bushcraft certainly helped, but the training they got on the day, on the first 2 days of the course was incredible.
Yeah. In terms of as well, you're given equipment. Obviously, you have a bit more experience with that from the level 2 course.
Yes.
What did you find the most useful out of that set of equipment, what did you use most when you went out?
So what surprised me is just how heavy the Bergen was, right? And we weighed the Bergens. Actually, we weighed it ourselves, and then we weighed ourselves with the Bergens. And my Bergen weighed 128 pounds. That's some weight to put on your back as well. And I weighed myself, and I think I weighed in at 111 kilos, which was quite interesting. Because I knew I'd been around about 110-ish for a while, which is far too much to get some weight off. But when we actually got out into our each individual areas, I think the things that I used the most was obviously the tarps for making a shelter. So I threw that across an old sheep pen that I started to rebuild slightly just to bring that elevation up a little bit, and I anchored that down. And then obviously the sleeping system was incredible, and it was bizarre actually because it was -1 outside, but I was in my sleeping bag in just my boxer shorts.
Yeah, they're pretty good.
Yeah,
if you keep them dry, they're very good.
Yeah, so that threw me a little bit. But I think overall we used everything. I used the saw, I used the axe, I used the knife. I tied the knife on to my belt so I didn't lose it. I did lose my axe one day. It took me about 2 hours to realise where I'd left it. It was right down the hill where I've been chopping some wood, so I had to walk back down there, which was no fun. But we found it. We had a crab. Well, we had 2 crab pots, and unfortunately, I lost one. The tide took one of them. But without that, then obviously I wouldn't be catching the crab that I had.
Yeah. So in the equipment, we give people 1 military ration pack. You chose not to take that out, and for most people, it's kind of like an emergency. I'm in the shit.
Yeah,
I need to eat. You opted not to take that. Can you explain why or what your reasoning was for that?
All the way up to the course, Ian had been saying to me that he's going to give me an emergency Mars bar, right? And even if I last the entire duration of the course, if I didn't give him the Mars bar back intact, I'd fail. And I'm thinking there is no way that I'm going to put that temptation in place. So when he passed me the ration pack, it actually weighed quite a lot as well. It was 3 or 4 kilos in these ration packs. I'm thinking, well, I don't need to carry extra weight, and I don't want the temptation. If I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it hardcore. I'm going to do it properly. So going out there for 5 nights with no food, no water, and you're dependent on your own ability to source those things is far more challenging than opening a ration pack. Yeah. So I left it in the corner of the admin and training camp, and it was still there when I got back.
Nobody dipped into it.
No, not that I'm aware of.
We actually found some contraband in one Bergen.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, 2 tins of mackerel.
Oh, not mine.
Not sure whose it was.
I don't like.
Not pointing any fingers.
I don't like mackerel. It definitely wasn't.
I don't know whose it was. You can take a guess. Yeah.
Good source of protein, though, I suppose.
Oh, yeah,
omega oils and whatever.
Yeah. So whilst you were out there, how did you find sourcing your own food and water? Like, were you in a good spot? Did you find it difficult to sustain yourself?
So when I went out into my designated area, so it was 5 square kilometres each that I think we had, roughly that. And the first thing that I did was do land orientation to find out where I was on the island, which Ian had told us to do. What was bizarre as well, not only I knew that I wouldn't have my phone, which was great, but when he took my watch as well, that really threw me. And I thought I'll be smart about this. The recording equipment that he gave us to create some of the video footage, I thought I'll just look at the clock on there. Well, they were all set to 0, so I couldn't even use that. So it literally was, looking at where the sun is in the sky and whatever. So that determined when you went down to the seashore for the tide coming in or coming out. So the place that I was in when I walked out into my area, The best place that I found to set up my camp was, like I said, on a sheep pen. So I established myself there, and then it was a walk down to the seashore, which took me about 40 minutes because the elevation was about 350, 400 meters down to the seashore, but it was a long, snaking, winding path. So it was about, like I said, about 40-minute walk, and it was exhausting.
Yeah.
Especially towards the end of the course where you've been in calorie deficiency for so long and your energy levels have just waned.
Yeah.
It was really, really difficult to do that walk every day. I was really blessed with water. There was lots of running streams coming off, and I actually found a waterfall. Yeah, this waterfall must have been about 30 feet high.
Yeah.
I actually showered in there as well. So it was fantastic. And I can remember one day having a shower and opening my eyes, and there was a sea otter watching me. And I've never seen a sea otter before in my life, and it must have looked at me and think, who's that idiot in this cold weather?
So you've probably never seen a naked bloke having a shower.
He wouldn't want to see me again. So that was awesome. And all the way down the track to the beach, there was a lot of berry bushes, blackberries and raspberries, but again, not in season. So they were either really often mushy or the raspberries were really raw. So I took a combination of those and pulped those up and had them in some hot water. The only other food source that I had was crab.
Yeah.
And I caught, God knows how many crab, 24 crab. A lot of them were only so big, so it's not even worth eating them. So threw those back. But caught quite a few crabs, 8 to 10 inches wide. Took them back to camp with some seaweed, a couple of whelks, a couple of mussels. But it's pointless unless you can make a fire. And the problem was making fire there because everything was so damp. Yeah. So getting fire starting material, chopping that down to get to the dry stuff in the middle, and then starting the fire, getting the boil on, then dropping the crab and the mussels and whatever in there. And it was delicious when you had it, but not a huge amount of calories.
Yeah. You were there for 5 days. You did do personal recordings. Unfortunately, we don't have any audio, but when you were doing those recordings, what was going through your mind at those points? If you just want to kind of recap.
Joe, it's funny because I also took a journal to writing. And I went on this course because I wanted to figure out some stuff work-wise in my own mind, just having some space to be able to do it. And I think I wrote about 14 pages in this journal, and there was only one page about work. It was all about me and how I felt. I think what it made me realise is just how fortunate I am. I've got a really, really blessed life. I've got a great family, I've got a great circle of friends, making me appreciate those guys more was important. And that's absolutely what it did. Because doing this course, whilst it was quite physical, up and down the hill 3 or 4 times a day, looking for firewood, looking for water, checking bait in your crab pots, all that type of stuff was hard. But I think the biggest challenge was the emotional challenge. Missing those creature comforts around the house, missing somebody to talk to, missing shouting at the kids, missing calling the dog over and kicking the ball around with the kids, or throwing the ball for the dog, or whatever it may be, or just those creature comforts, being able to have a cup of coffee when you want, or go into the fridge and grab something when you want, and sitting down on a cozy settee and listening to some music, or watching TV. All of that stuff that we take for granted, it made me appreciate them much more being isolated on my own. So I think, the loneliness was a big thing. I think if it had gone on much longer than 5 days, then that would have probably become a real challenge.
Ian's mentioned that you want to go back for longer. So with them that in mind, say, the mental state potentially after 5-6 days would have been starting to wane. Why would you want to go for a longer period?
I'd like to go back again, and I'd love to do a last man standing, right? But that's me just being probably extra aggressive with the approach to it. Whether or not I'd win it or not is another thing, but I'd like to at least another 10 days. Why? Because I want to prove that I can. Because I enjoyed it so much. Because I think it's fantastic for mental resilience and well-being. You know, I haven't got a particularly stressful job, but I work a lot across different businesses, all of which have got different stresses and different challenges. So I think it equips you to deal with those challenges better. It equips you to be able to deal with life's daily grinding challenges. I mean, let's face it, we've been 2 years almost in a global pandemic. That's taken its toll on a lot of people, me included. So I think having the ability to be able to get into the great outdoors, do something challenging, and actually do something that's mentally rewarding and stimulating for you as an individual is fantastic. What a lot of people probably don't know, and I don't know if you know this either, Ash, is I raised £3,000 for Royal Hospital in Liverpool doing this challenge.
I didn't know that.
So, and I did that.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I did that because 11 years ago, when I was in hospital, I got struck down with acute pancreatitis necrosis and was given a short period of time to live. And this is when Pip, my wife, was just going into a third trimester with Charlie, my youngest. And nobody expected me to survive. I had 3 operations. I was in hospital for 6 months. I couldn't walk. In fact, I couldn't get out of bed. And I went from 110 kilos, which I've typically been, because I'm 6'2", I'm a decent sized guy, went down to 62 kilos. Wow. I was like that.
Yeah.
And as I gradually started to get better and better and better, and then released from hospital, I always vowed that I would do anything that I could every year to try and support the hospital. And that's what I've done for years. Like I said earlier, I've done Tough Mudder 3 times, I've done 3 Peaks, Ben Nevis Challenge, Liverpool to Chester, back to Liverpool bike rides through the tunnel a couple of times. The kids have done something. I even threw my wife off the top of the hospital one day. I made her abseil down the top of the Liverpool hospital in high heel boots.
Wow.
She wasn't expecting.
I bet she wasn't.
So when I decided to do the Elite Challenge, I said to her, just give him Paige, and it raised £3,000, which all that's reward.
That's amazing.
So I'd probably do the same again, and people will probably pay a lot more to keep me on that secret location island for longer, just to get rid of me.
Cool. No, it's really good. It's amazing you've done that. So, when was it? November we came back.
Yeah.
So we're 6-7 weeks past now when coming back from Scotland.
Yeah.
Where are you at now? Like, from the things that you've learned and the things that you've talked about, where's it taking you and your mindset now with work, with life?
It's made me, as I said earlier, a lot more appreciative of the things that I have and that I have around me. It's made me hopefully more supportive of that environment as well, and contribute more towards it. It's made me really connect what happens on that course back to business. So, just to give you an example of that. You're on the island, you're on the course, it's a cold, windy, wet morning. Sun's just come up, and you're nice and warm in your sleeping bag. But you know that you've got to get up, put your cold, damp clothes on from the previous day, trundle all the way down the hill to check your crab pots, rebait them, reset them, and do a few admin tasks like clean teeth for argument's sake, and get water, get firewood. It's very easy not to do that. But if you don't bait the crab pot, you don't catch the crab. Even if you catch the crab, if you don't have water, you don't have firewood, the knowledge and the ability to be able to make a fire, you can't cook the crab and convert it into calories. Yeah? But it's the same in business. No matter how tough a business gets, if you don't get up in the morning and do your prospecting, whether it's across social media, picking up the phone, sending emails, knocking on doors, going to events, going to networking sessions. You don't catch a prospect, i.e. catch a crab.
Yeah.
But even if you catch the crab, i.e. a customer order, if you haven't got the ability to be able to deliver it, whether it's your operations, support, planning, delivery, and delivering a good customer outcome for your customer, you don't get paid. So me being paid on the course was calorie intake from the crowd.
Yeah.
Businesses being paid is cash in the bank. So what it demonstrated to me is one, that logical sequential thinking. You've got to set yourself up for success and set it up early and keep on doing it. And if it's not quite working right, pivot. I moved the locations of those crab pots 2 or 3 times.
Yeah.
Yeah. I tried other fishing techniques that didn't work. Yeah. So I had to do other things to improvise with the berries. And that's the same with business. You know, you sometimes have to pivot. If things are not working, try other things, but continue to measure and continue looking to improve. And I think where I am now, I think back, and this may be why I want to go back, Ash. I think back about what I would have done differently now knowing what I know from that course. And I would do a lot of things totally differently. And that's why I'm hoping I will go back.
Just on the note you just said, with a gentleman that I was working with on the course, he found that, and he openly admitted this as well, he overthought everything, and that led to him not making decisions. So that was not making decisions to go and make firewood and kind of thinking about it too much. And what you just said about there, if you need to make change, don't be afraid to do that. Just do it.
Yeah, exactly.
Is very relatable to the business world in day-to-day life as well.
Absolutely. You know, one of the biggest things that hinders progress in business is indecision.
Yeah.
You know, because people don't like change. People don't always have the courage to make a decision. Yeah, they overcomplicate. They will overthink things. You know, so whilst there is a level of diligence that you have to do before you make a decision in business, it's only like the same on the course. You know, do you want to go and walk 2 miles in that direction? Yeah.
And waste X amount of calories doing so.
Yeah. Exactly. Or do you forgo that potential gain and retain those calories?
Yeah.
It's the same as business. You know, do you invest over there in your business with the view to getting a potential return, or do you think, you know what, we'll leave that for now, we'll just focus on what we've got? So again, it's a good way for business people, or any type of people really, to be able to take a step back and think about how they make decisions. And this is why I came up with this process that I went through, logical sequential thinking. Because an action today will have a consequence tomorrow.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of like setting yourself up for the future.
Absolutely.
Yeah. If you had any advice for people wanting to do the course, what would that be?
Get fit first. So, you know, I've always been relatively fit.
Yeah.
You know, I've always played rugby, well, up until that 10 or 12 years ago. I've always been to the gym, cycled, do a lot of yoga. And I took up rowing last year, probably August, September time. I've done, I think by the time I went on the course, I'd done 100,000 meters. Yeah, so I'd cracked on a fair bit. Yeah. So I got myself into a reasonable shape before we went. And when I went on the course, I'm glad that I did. You know, my strength, my stamina had improved dramatically through rowing. So I would say, try to get as physically fit as you possibly can. I looked and I read a couple of books on survival, and there was a number of people that said put weight on, because when you go off into a survival mode where there's no food, well, there is food, there is water, you've got to know how to collect it. So if you can't get access to it, then your body will start to burn the stored fat.
Yeah.
But then I read another book saying start to eat less, shrink your stomach, shrink what your body actually needs, yeah, and you'll survive that way. So I decided actually to eat less.
Right.
Yeah. I think that did help me. You know, when I came back to camp and got weighed after the course, I'd lost 5.5 kilos in a week. So I'd like to go back. I'll probably put it all back on now, but I lost 5.5 kilos.
Especially over Christmas, right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's why I've been rowing again this morning. You can see the top. But I think also get yourself mentally prepared, but prepare your family as well. Right? So what I didn't realise was the impact that it had on my family being away. Now they tracked me all the way up to Scotland until I turned my phone off. I gave my phone, my watch, and everything to Ian. But as soon as I turned my phone back on, they got alerted and bang, they were on the phone. And I've never heard the kids being in floods of tears and Pip being in floods of tears to hear me. He's all got his back usually. Yeah. So I think the pressure that it put on them and the worry that they had about me going on the course, I'd not thought about. So if you're going to go on the course, get a little bit physically fitter, shrink your stomach a little bit, mentally prepare for the isolation, and prepare your family for that as well. Yeah, especially when they're used to talking to you on a regular basis.
Yeah, used to having you around. I think even for, I still have contacts and I still have my phone for filming. Yeah. But even still, Carmel and the kids were missing. So God knows what it must have been like for them to have zero contact with you whatsoever.
It was tough. Well, I just think that this is a once in a lifetime. Well, is it a once in a lifetime? It's been a once in a lifetime opportunity for me that I hope to repeat. But we'll just see if I can work on a pass. I've got a couple of shooting trips and a trip down to the Monaco Grand Prix this year. So whether I can get a pass for another week to 10 days to do this or not remains to be seen. But if I could, I'd love to do it. It's different, it's challenging. It's one of the best things that I've ever done in my life. Thoroughly enjoyed it. And I know the other guys did as well.
Yeah.
And when I talk to friends now, they say, "Well, you've just done that with your son, haven't you?" I said, "Yeah, we travelled up together. We trained for the first day or so together, and we travelled back together. But I didn't see him for the rest of the time." That made me, "Oh, really? We thought you were going together." So it's not that type of thing where you go and you work as a team. You go, you get your training on the ground, which is exceptionally good, and then you're on your own. The nice thing about it, you do have a tap out button, so you've got a tracker on. If you find it's too much for you, you can tap out, and I know that the instructors will be there to give you some additional support and training if you needed. I was not sure if it's fortunate or stubborn that I didn't.
Probably a bit of a combination.
Yeah, and one of the things that I found really bizarre, I still haven't got to the bottom of this, so you might be able to tell me about this, right? One particular night, it was really blowing a gale. It was sub-zero. I haven't a clue what time it was, because I just know it was dark. And all of a sudden, I saw this red light appear in my tent, or in my shelter, and something pulling at my sleeping bag. What the hell is that? And it was Ian, the chief instructor. He said, Roy, we've got to get you back to base camp. He said, there's a severe weather warning on the way. And I think my reaction to him was rather blunt at the point, and not to be repeated on this video, but it was something along the lines of, "Go forth and multiply, and leave me alone, I'm fine." And I still haven't found out whether that was actually a test or whether it was an actual real risky situation.
Time will tell. We'll have to ask Ian about that one.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
And then other people say to me, "So if you were going to do it again, would you do it in the winter?" I think I would actually. February would be a good one when that comes up, but I'm not going to be able to get onto the February. April would be good because it's going to be, I would imagine, quite rainy and still quite choppy there. So if I was going to go again, I'd go again in November.
Yeah. I think people have got this mindset of like, right, well, if I go in winter, it's just going to be horrific. There's different challenges to the winter and the summer. People looking at the course and go, "I'm not doing that in January, February, because I'll just be freezing." Well, you still need to learn those skills in that kind of temperature, that weather.
Yeah. The other thing as well, Ash, when I was preparing to go up there, my 11-year-old, who had been to Chumley with me, he was desperate to go as well. And obviously, you've got to be 18 for all the obvious reasons that I know. So I've come to a compromise with him now. So he's doing another level 2 bushcraft course, but with his other brother, who's 14. But they're going together, right? Because like most boys, most brothers, they're like that.
Cat and dog.
Yeah, all the time. So they've got to go up on this level 2 course up in Chumley next month, February. But Charlie has said to Ian, chief instructor, I don't want any ration packs. I just want to go and survive myself, because you just know that if he was 18, he would be in Scotland.
He'd be on it.
He'd be on it without a doubt. And I think it's great for people of all ages. You know, the nice thing about what Spartan is doing, you know, it covers for families, it covers for kids that want to go off and do something adventurous without the parents. What I find really admirable is some of the work that Ian's doing with young people with learning difficulties. I think that's really admirable. And also with some of the armed forces veterans.
Yeah.
You know, some of the charitable work that he's doing there. Again, you know, helping the people that sacrifice so much for all of us and giving something back. And that's before you talk about corporate team building. You know, as you know, I work across and invest in a bunch of different businesses. And I think gone is the day where team building is putting people in a hotel boardroom and telling them to make something out of it, like a paper aeroplane, or figure out a problem in a boardroom, right? People want much more than that. And I can remember years ago, I did water aid and built a raft as a team building event and sailed it across Rutland, which was fantastic. The teamwork and the camaraderie that came out of that was insane. So I'm taking a couple of our businesses with Spartan on a couple of the corporate team building courses. Because if you can put a team that's maybe not even necessarily used to working together, that can go into an environment like Woodland and learn how to put a shelter up, learn how to create a fire, forage, navigate, cook, look out for each other, and whatever. I just think it just builds that teamwork, that trust, and that camaraderie that then can help propel your businesses forward.
Yeah. It's putting people in an environment where, you know, not so much the force to work together, but it's necessary to work together, right?
Yeah.
But you're putting people in that situation where it's like, right, I have to learn to work with someone now.
And I think that's some of the allure of what Spartan are doing, because they are taking a lot of the core concepts of elite forces in the military and bringing them through into bushcraft and survival courses that they're now delivering. So if people can learn some of those skills, you know, and I was thinking about it on the way back from Scotland. If I was in a shipwreck or a plane crash or whatever, ended up on a remote island somewhere, I actually feel better equipped now to be able to survive, to be able to look after my family if it was with me, or other people that survived that type of horrific incident. Yeah, I feel more confident and comfortable in my own capabilities to be able to do that. Whereas before, probably not. So yeah, I think there's a lot of benefits and byproducts of this that I haven't even seen yet.
Yeah.
So hopefully it'll make me a better person.